Welcome to Building Birmingham Together, a show about Birmingham's business leaders, successes, failures, and lessons learned to encourage you to remember that dreaming is free, but the hustle is sold separately. I'm your host, Kim Lee, founder and CEO of Forge. Today, I'm joined by Russell Hooks. Russell is co-founder of Happenins in the Ham. Russell and his wife, Amber, started Happenins in the Ham to share their Birmingham adventures and promote the greater Birmingham business area. Since they started, it has turned into a huge following, like 31,000 followers on Instagram. And they focus on highlighting free and low-cost events in Birmingham, local businesses, and philanthropies. And their goal is to really spotlight these events for their followers. Russell also does social media consulting for small businesses under the Happenins in the Ham LLC. But as with a lot of businesses, has found a way to pivot during the pandemic. So before we get started, Building Birmingham Together is brought to you today by Forge. Forge is Birmingham's first professional co-working space located in the heart of downtown Birmingham at the Pizitz building. With private offices, open workspaces, as well as meeting and event space, Forge is the place where small business owners and entrepreneurs come together, meet people, and get work done. If you would like to find out more about Forge, you can visit our website at workatforge.com. So Russell, thank you for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so excited to start this interview with you. So just for history, Russell and I actually met through a program called Co-Starters that Create Birmingham puts on, which we will all cheer co-starters on. So I know a lot of Russell's backstory, but I would love for you to share with us just how Happenins in the Ham got started and what you were doing and what led to the launch of this great adventure that you're on.
Yeah, so it's such a fun story. Amber and I have always been passionate about Birmingham, and I was born and raised in Homewood until right before high school, I moved up to Huntsville. And so I was born in 83. So I had the, mid 80s, early 90s Birmingham experience when the only thing downtown was Alabama Theater and then what became McWayne Center. And there was nothing else going on. And so I came back, went to Montevallo and stuck around the Birmingham area. Amber's from Mobile and she went to UAB. So she, spent her college years in downtown. So we started dating. She's like, oh, let's go downtown. I'm like, there's nothing downtown. She's like, yeah, there is. So she actually is the one that reintroduced Birmingham to me because I had those, preconceived notions from, the old Birmingham.
So what year was that? What year did she reintroduce you to downtown?
We met in November of 2009. So this is right when Regents Field, Railroad Park, the rise of the Birmingham Renaissance, as it has become known, kicked off, right? And so we would go to Railroad Park and she made a game out of trying to find as many free and fun stuff to do without spending a lot of money. So it just became kind of a thing of, let's go and see how much we can do on a budget. She's super frugal, which is great. So, that was kind of our thing. Well, once she started her new job in accounting, she wanted to have something she was known for. And she became known as the person that knew what was going on each weekend. So she would tell all her coworkers, hey, Russell, I did X, Y, Z. And we only spent like $25 this entire weekend. And they were fascinated by that. And she started doing an email. Then our friends wanted to know about it. So she did a PDF and started emailing it out. And she was working on that just in her free time. And after a couple of months, I was like, let me see what you're up to with this whole thing you've been talking about. And I saw it. And I was like, there's a lot of potential. So I called her the next day. I was like, hey, I bought something. And she's like, what'd you buy and how much did you spend? I said, I spent like $15 on the URL happensintheham.com. Went ahead and got the social media handles and all that stuff. And we just started sharing our experience as a hobby. And it was strictly a hobby to share what we were doing with Birmingham and people around. And our initial audience was the over the mountain crowd. For those not from Birmingham, that's Hoover, Homewood, Vestavia, Mountain Brook, that may have had misconceptions about downtown. They might think, oh, well, I just see on the news there's a shooting or there's some crime happening, and they didn't see all the cool stuff that was going on, this whole resurgence that was taking place. And our goal through social media was to share that via Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, our website, which we just kind of figured out how to build on our own at first before we got a non-WordPress website. And at the time, we both had full-time jobs. Like I said, it was a hobby. I was working for B Metro magazine back then. I then got a job as a marketing director for a local car company, and I learned a whole lot about the marketing side of everything. And that kind of led into what I do with the consulting. But then at a certain point, I just realized that, hey, we have the ability for me to be able to do this full time and to put a lot of energy and just help promote the city and partner with local businesses and nonprofits and help them get the word out.
So how did you transition from I have this idea to, okay, somehow we've got to make money. I have a
Right.
full-time job, a full-paying job. I know it didn't happen overnight, but kind of explain the process that y'all went through to make that
Sure.
decision to jump from good jobs to we're gonna do it. We're gonna go for it.
So it was a big decision. Luckily Amber had just received a promotion at work and she had great job security. And so that was good. We had an idea of how much income we needed, to generate. That's when I enrolled in CoStar's Birmingham. That's where we met. And it was a phenomenal experience because really at that point, we're like, well, do we want to become a 501c3? What's our mission? And after speaking to a few people, we realized, we're boxing ourselves in and limiting what we can do if we become a nonprofit versus an LLC. We want to be altruistic, but people are like, hey, you can do that as an LLC. You can still get back to the community. You don't have to be a nonprofit and just write grants all day kind of thing. And so because I was in marketing and because I was approached every day by people trying to sell me on, here's why you should pay us to run your social media. And I saw how expensive it was and what a steep hurdle it was to get over for a business starting out. And I knew enough to ask the right questions, and they were kind of caught off guard by how well versed I was in social media because at that point I was living and breathing Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. And I realized that there was a need out there for small businesses that couldn't afford to hire a third-party company to run their social media, or just didn't have the information to make a smart decision when they did hire someone to know that that person was doing what was in their company's best interest. And so that's how I was able to do that without having to put ads on the website. We didn't want to become ale.com. We didn't want to compete with that. We call ourselves like the better view of Birmingham because we wanted to highlight, be cheerleaders, and not report, every negative thing that's going on. And the way I was able to do that was through this kind of back of house consulting that I could help people behind the scenes with their social media game and help their business grow via social media and not have to worry about running ads on Happenin directly. Now we do, get contacted a fair amount to cover events. So like we'll get paid to, promote a giant event like Regis Tradition or the Honda Indy Grand Prix. And we go and spend all day out there. We post X amount of stories and tag people, and we help sell tickets, that kind of stuff. And there's a lot of trade involved as well. So we try to meet people, where they're at and figure out the best way to go about doing that.
So when you started this whole, what year was it? It was
2013. Well,
2013, but when you
full time, I think it was 2016. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so Instagram was one of the platforms where I really followed you, but y'all kind of entered into this world of influencing before it was a thing. So how has that transition been, and your story on finding yourself through Instagram, how you grew your brand?
So it was so interesting because I feel like timing is a big thing. When people like right now, TikTok is a huge platform. You have these people hop on TikTok and they have 1 point something million followers. And then they're like, follow my Instagram. And it's like, oh, they have 500 people on Instagram. So, if you're an early adopter of a platform and it happens to catch on, that helps. Right. And we were posting consistently. And it was, we were passionate. We were trying to be authentic. And what's so interesting about it is when we first started, it was about Birmingham, not about us. And so we didn't feature ourselves in it. It was just Happens to Ham, not Russell and Amber. And people thought that we were owned by ale.com or that we were a business or whatever. And at the time, so finally we started putting ourselves in there. We spent an entire day. We went to, I think 11 events in one day and did a proof of life photo back when everything was chronological on Instagram. And like, it's just us. We don't have employees. We don't have interns. We're just doing this. And at that point, because of the relatability, that's where our following just took off on Instagram. And we realized that we had become, for better or worse, the face of our brand, and just had to, make decisions based on that. And we decided that we didn't want to over curate our content to make it look uniform. We just wanted to share our story, the story of Birmingham, the story of business owners in the area, and just engage our followers and really have those conversations. So when someone messaged us and we would message them back, they'd be shocked. Like, we get a message at 11 o'clock at night on a Friday, hey, we're gonna get chili cheese fries, and we respond and like, go to Al's. I'm like, wait, I didn't actually think y'all were gonna reply to me. So just doing that kind of stuff made it a whole lot of fun. And the whole influencer thing, it has definitely, the definition of an influencer has changed a lot since we started. So we like to say we're micro influencers, which is, defined to a geographic area. Yeah.
So I'll give a quick story of how y'all micro influenced me. We live in the area around the Cahaba Heights little area, and you had posted, this was right after quarantine. Oh, well, I guess right when restaurants were starting to open back up. I can't remember. Time is gone for me, but totally gone. But you posted a new pizza place, and we have been, we love to support our area. We had been saying that needed to come, and I didn't even know it was coming because I had been at home forever. And so it's like, oh, we're going to do that tomorrow night. And I think it was their grand opening or something.
It was.
And you influenced a lot of people that night because we waited a long time, but it was so good. And we've been back lots of times. So it's really amazing. I think your authenticity and your love of the city and just how it really is such a breath of fresh air and really does highlight so many things of the city, and the work that y'all do really help grow and promote businesses. So it's really amazing the work that y'all have done, from like these idea to promote free and low cost events to really support the small business community. I mean, you make a huge impact. And so I want you to hear that I'm thankful for what you're doing. Yeah, because I know that y'all put a lot of time and a lot of effort into it. So it really is so cool to see the work that you're doing have direct impact on small businesses.
Well, thanks. Stuff like that, it's exciting because it's always fun when you post about food and we see someone tag a friend like, hey, at Mary Sue, let's go here for dinner tonight. That's a lot of fun because we're not just, helping them sell a product, we're creating customers. And we had that aha moment. We're like, well, we're trying to, add, and as we learned in Co-Stars, the two hardest things about business are, when you're growing the business, that's always tough. And then when you're trying to, assign value to what you do and price points and things like that, it's like, well, how much value is in selling a dozen donuts that normally cost like, $9 or something like that. But then you realize you're creating a customer that would have otherwise not known about this place. And then they tell their friends and post about it. And so you're actually generating a whole lot of business for that company by encouraging and priming that person to have a great experience, because they walk in the door expecting a good experience and they're going to more likely have one. And that's just super exciting. And we just really get a lot of enjoyment out of helping businesses thrive like that.
Yeah, well, y'all do a great job. So I have another question about happenings in the ham, and then I kind of want to dive into how y'all have transitioned a little bit, and more about you and the work that you do. But so if you follow Happenings in the Ham anywhere, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, their newsletters, you know so much and are so many different places. How do y'all find out and pick the places that you want to support, promote, all of the above?
Sure. Well, when it started out, we would, especially Amber, when she first started, she would just go through and go to like Birmingham 365. And this is back before Facebook was as user friendly as it is for events, and we'd have to search events individually, okay, let's type in Red Mountain and see what they have coming up, but we would just go through and we love Birmingham 365 as a resource, but you have Bob's yard sale next to this, Sauce Fest event, right? And you're like, okay, let's pick. And we started out trying to highlight 7 to 10 free and low cost events, or maybe if it was like $50 for like a nonprofit fundraiser, we would include that, but put, hey, the proceeds benefit this foundation. But we would curate that and say, it's kind of like when back we had video stores, like here are the manager's picks for the top things you should watch this weekend, that kind of thing. And then now it's grown to, it grew to about almost 20 events per week. Now due to COVID, we're kind of back in the 7 to 10 range, which is a little bit more manageable, but we're excited about more events starting to happen again. But now we have people send us direct messages on Instagram, on Facebook, or like somehow they get my cell phone number, I get a text message. And I quickly had to realize, okay, I need you to email it to me, because you're like, oh crap, where did they send that to me? Was it on Instagram? Was it on, you're looking for the info. But it's a blend of us just going out and looking and telling people, hey, let us know, and people sending us information. And we do try to qualify that, okay, we're not going to promote every bake sale that a high school does. But we also look at, is it free or low cost? Does it benefit the community? Is this a local business versus a franchise, national chain? And we try to factor that in when making those decisions.
Yeah.
And it's something that we will go to.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. Do you really want to? Yeah. Is it going to be fun? Well, so you touched on it a little bit, but obviously right now it is, what month is it? October. We are living in the life of COVID. So your main things are events, restaurants, and small businesses, which are helping consulting and promote small businesses. Mm-hmm. So all three of those major affected. So how has that affected the work that y'all do, and maybe where you see Happenins in the Ham, the direction going? Or
yeah, well, I think it's kind of a twofold answer. One, I'll never forget St. Patrick's Day weekend. We always do this big St. Patrick's Day post. That's mine and Amber's holiday that we've celebrated together the longest of all the holidays. And so we have we would always do like the industry kegs and eggs at 6 a.m. and stuff like that. And this year, I just remember sitting there, I guess it was on the 14th or 15th, and we started getting all the cancellation notices. That's when the city, put the lockdown in effect, and it was just email after email and going through. And at first I just started editing the blog post I'd already published. And it finally got to the point where I was like, I just have to take the post down because everything's canceled. And that was really tough. But, and at the same time, our goal, our metric of success is how many people can we get to go attend this small space event? As many people as possible in one space, which is the opposite of what needed to happen during COVID. So that was definitely a curveball. And then, of course, you have restaurants that were all shut down. And then you have businesses as far as consulting that they're like, well, hey, I don't have the budget for this right now because my income is gone, and I don't know if I'll be around in a few weeks. So you don't want to ask them for money if they're struggling. Now, what we are able to do, though, is use our platform to, one, share important information about like the mask ordinance, the curfew, all the social distancing things. We would, get that from, the city, the state, UAB, and share that, which was cool. We also, when people adapted and pivoted to curbside service, you had, get like Birmingham, which is a website that would highlight, who's doing what type of service for restaurants. We would share that and did a post about that. So we were able to kind of turn ourselves into like the town crier for here's how to adapt in the COVID life in Birmingham, even though there weren't many events going on. And we took a much needed rest. It was the first time in 5 years that we hadn't done a weekly weekend blog post. So that was odd, but it was kind of a nice little reprieve from the repetition of doing consistent posts every week for 5 years. But now I do feel like when we get to the other side of COVID, that we're in a good position to be able to help restaurants, especially and small businesses, affordably promote, whether it's through trade or just, super cheap promo, that we can help them get the word out and just get back to the new normal of post-COVID.
So are you seeing what are you seeing with small businesses? Like, are you seeing any hope? Are you seeing people are still just kind of waiting and scared? What's kind of the landscape that you're seeing?
So I get two questions. The first question is, when will big events come back? Like, you hear this and all that, and I'm like, well, probably I was like mid summer, or fall, like to a fairly normal thing. Bonnaroo got rescheduled for, I think, Labor Day weekend. Normally it's in June, so they're kind of hedging their bets to have this big festival. And there's a lot that goes into planning all those events. But then, like with small businesses, I feel like some have already closed, unfortunately. And I do feel like there are some, business owners who are getting ready to retire, and this just kind of made that decision easy for them. So that first wave of closures where businesses are already kind of on the brink and, may or may not have closed anyway. And you had the second wave. And now they're just trying to adapt and stay afloat as best they can until they can emerge on the other side. And, unfortunately, some may still close and not make it. Like, there are a lot of restaurants at Brookwood Village that have closed since this started. It's like, oh man, another one. And it's always sad when you see that. But there are some that have been able to adapt. The city allowing curbside alcohol sales, or the state, as long as they did, that was very helpful. Patio seating, having things like eat in the streets with social distancing, it did bring the restaurant community and small business community together, because they all had to come together and help each other out to survive it.
Mm-hmm. So you're feeling positive?
I am. I like to say I'm cautiously optimistic and always hopeful that restaurants and small businesses can make it through on the other end. It is tough. A lot of people are about to open a business. I have a friend who became a travel agent right before this started happening. Yeah, I mean, bless her heart. She also became a real estate agent back in 2008. So there's that. Yeah. So just people having to adapt as best they can. And it is tricky, but I do think that the business community has really pulled together, and they're all doing what they can to help each other out. And they're all helping for instance, service industry workers that have been furloughed. There's an organization that's helping to feed them, and provide meals because they're not able to work, things like that. The city has really, come together and is trying its best to help out.
Mm-hmm. Well, so our listeners are people who want to know, are interested in business, interested in what's going on in the city and how to grow and what's going on. So I know that starting a business can be tough, even if you're, 6 years in, it still can be difficult. Yeah. But what is the greatest joy that with Happenings in the Ham brings you? Like what do you love? What gets you up in the midst of all the hardness?
Getting to engage with the community and getting those stories, the kind of testimonials of, for instance, we were at I think it was Art on the Rocks or Art After Five. It was one of the events at the Art Museum. And a couple came up to us and said, we just had to come say hey, because we moved here from, I think it was Colorado. We didn't know anyone. We ran into somebody that said, oh, you should check out Happens the Ham. They have some events you can check out to get to know the city. And they said they met their core group of friends at one of those events. So they went to one of the events and hit it off with a table full of people. And they're like, they're our core group of friends now. And they had been in the city for a little over a year at that point, or, when they talked to us about it. Then we heard, we had a contest winner because we do giveaways. And we did a giveaway, one of the first giveaways we did. It was for tickets to Secret Stages, one of our favorite music discovery festivals. And the girl who won the ticket met her now husband at the festival when she went. And they're like, oh, look, matchmakers.
That's amazing.
So yeah, those types of stories just really, really inspire us to get up, because especially when you're not able to interact with people and you're behind the computer screen and you're typing an email going like, okay, how many people are going to read this? And how many people are going to be like, I'll get to it later. But it definitely helps you get that feedback, when you have someone say, hey, I tried that, like you said, I tried this pizza place because of your post. That is super helpful and inspiring.
Yeah. Okay. So flip side, what is the hardest part of starting a business, being a business owner, what y'all are doing?
I think, having the, having to be consistent with it and not getting like immediate results, because, unless there's an exception, you're going to have to really plug away at it for a while as you start building your business. And it is consistency. Whenever a new Birmingham based blog pops up, oh, are y'all concerned about that? I'm like, no, not really. We're doing our thing. But 9 times out of 10, those will last for about 6 months and they drop off because people don't realize how much effort it takes. And they're not getting, no one's sponsoring their content or paying them money to post it. And they realize that, wow, this is a huge undertaking. And I really don't have the time I thought I did to put into this. So I think it's just that whole, you have to be consistent. You have to just keep at it and keep doing it. And then whenever you have something massive like COVID happen, where your hands are tied and you're like, okay, literally this is affecting every aspect of what our business does, that is very hard to deal with, but you just have to figure out how to pivot. I think 2020 is just that gif of Ross Geller and friends with the sofa yelling like, pivot, pivot. Yes. I think that's for small businesses. That's what the gif of the year is.
Yeah, I've used that one more than once, more than twice. Right. And it always makes me laugh. So, you can only, if you don't laugh.
And for instance, Forage did such a great job. Y'all had to adapt as well because y'all had to close down temporarily. You adapted your social distancing procedures. You came back slowly and built up. You had, all the disinfectant and the wipes and everything. And I told Amber, I was like, when I first started going back, I was like, it's like my own fortress of solitude, because sometimes I was the only person in the area. But, I was like, I feel safer at Forage than I do anywhere else because y'all did take all the necessary precautions. And it was just really cool that y'all were able to adapt and allow people to kind of slowly return to normal when a normal office environment wouldn't have been able to do that as efficiently. So yeah, I think y'all set a great example of how to do that.
Oh, thank you. Our team has, not just me, has worked very hard. So they've done a great job. Okay. So I have, 2 more questions for you. Okay. One, is, and I think you've touched on some of these, but just, I think, as a business owner, watching other business owners, I love to hear just sort of lessons you've learned along the way that may not necessarily be like because you write a blog post, but just lessons that you've learned that's impacted the way that you live your life, conduct your business, that you've learned over this journey of entrepreneurship.
One, surround yourself with like-minded people that want you to succeed. That's, and Forge does a great job of that. Co-starters, did that. People that, you see those people and you're like, okay, for instance, people we know like Rebecca Dobrinsky, Dion Gordon, people like that. We're like, okay, these people are wanting me to succeed. I want them to succeed. Let's be around each other as much as possible. And it helps you help one another thrive. So that's important, getting that motivation from others. And then again, I always tell people when I do social media consulting, you can't walk into a gym and walk out with a 6-pack unless you stop and buy a 6-pack of beer on the way home. It's a little bit every day. And that is, for me, the hardest part, because I want to be able to like click a button and be like, yay, everything's going exactly like I want it to. So just knowing that it's a little bit each day, you're going to have good days, you're going to have bad days, but as long as you are sticking to your why, the why before the how, as long as you stick to your why and you push forward and you constantly challenge yourself, you constantly grow and learn, that's helpful. And the times I've struggled the most are the times I realize that I've stopped growing. And COVID, made that difficult because you can't go to lunch and learns or pitch nights or things like that where you get that energy and those ideas. So it becomes really hard. So you have to turn to, okay, what books can I read? What podcasts can I listen to? Things like this podcast. Where can I go to get my inspiration? I had to learn how to do that because I realized it's been 2 weeks and I haven't interacted with anyone really, and now I'm depressed about it. What can I do to kind of get out of that funk?
Right. Okay. And then the last real question, then a few that I haven't warned you about. So the title of this podcast is Building Birmingham Together, because I love that we're all part of a large ecosystem and we're all really working together to make Birmingham better, whether we know it or not. Hopefully, we're making it better. But what role do you see that Happenings in the Ham plays in building Birmingham? I know you've touched on it some.
Yeah, so I once heard when Dion Gordon, who I mentioned a second ago, when he was the Rev Birmingham, and he talked about the big pitch, which is something that they do on an annual basis. He said that they are a stage for these small business owners, whether it's in concept mode or whether they've already launched the business and they're looking for additional funding. They're the stage, and then the business owner has to go up there and give their spiel, but they need a safe place to do so where they'll be seen by an audience of like-minded people that want them to succeed. And I like to say that Happens to Ham is a spotlight. So we like to, focus and shine a light on things and people and causes that, the average person might not be aware of, especially in the days we're in a social media where there's so much noise. There's so much noise going on that it's hard to focus on one particular thing at a time. And so that's what we try to do. We act as a spotlight and we highlight them, promote them, because our theory is that they've kind of hitched their wagon to Birmingham. And if Birmingham succeeds, they succeed. If Birmingham fails, they fail, and vice versa. So our job is to encourage that growth and help everyone succeed in our city as we are growing with the startup culture, the co-working culture, all this stuff that people just, they kind of underestimate Birmingham. I like to say it's the largest small city in America. So it has that small town feel, but you can still have that, big city fun that you could have elsewhere. And
Right.
it's a good dichotomy.
Yep. Okay, so now let's see. Two rapid fire questions. No, three.
Bonus round.
One, what are y'all doing this weekend, events wise?
Oh, okay.
Soon.
Great question. Going for a hike at Oak Mountain for one
Okay.
on Saturday morning. They are having Eat in the Streets both Friday and Saturday night, which is an event where they block off a street downtown or different places in the city, and they allow the restaurants in the area to set up tables and serve food and alcohol. So that's good. I know Fiesta is going on for 30 days this year. They're showing Coco, Disney's Pixar's Coco, in Spanish at the drive-in with English subtitles.
Cool.
They'll have taco trucks. So those are just a couple of things. Maybe football if it still happens this weekend. I don't know.
Oh man. Okay,
Yeah.
next question. What is your favorite podcast? It can be business or guilty pleasure.
Oh, here
Or
we go.
both.
Guilty pleasure
If you
time.
can't,
Yeah.
I have a hard time narrowing down. So what?
So I like Halloween a lot and scary stuff and folklore. And there's a podcast called Lore, and Aaron Mankey, I think is the guy's name. And it's great because I think there are over 100 episodes. And he talks about folklore and tells the story behind it. It has like an eerie, spooky musical soundtrack in the background.
Oh, cool.
But you get to learn about all these, witches and goblins and werewolves and, kind of thing. And it's really cool to hear the history behind stories you hear all the time. Now, I will say that when I'm driving down the interstate on cruise control, I have to switch it to something else because he does kind of lull you into a nice, sleepy state sometimes. So like, okay, maybe some music, but yeah, Lore is my favorite podcast currently.
Okay. And what book have you read that has impacted the way you do business the most?
Oh, the most?
Or,
that's
like
one.
your favorite. It doesn't, yeah.
Okay, Why Before the How. That's a gimme.
Well, you said that. I loved it. Yeah.
Yes. That one's important because really it focuses on your why you're doing something, and then how you do it is secondary, but you just have to keep your passion focused, your priorities straight. A friend of mine bought me this book called It's All in Your Head, and it's by Russ. So the cover says It's All in Your Head, Russ. And yeah, and it's like about this rapper and it's him telling his story about how he went from making tracks in his friend's parents' basement, to becoming this apparently a famous rapper. And so I've been reading that one, currently reading it. It's very interesting to hear how, just like we were in Co-Stars, the stories, while it's a whole different area, the stories are very similar to how you start out, and the process is almost identical. Even if the product at the end is different, the process is very, very similar.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Russell, for joining me today. And thank you to everybody who's listened in. If you'd like to learn more about Happenings in the Ham and the work that Russell and Amber are doing, or if you'd like to reach out to Russell about social media consulting, you can find all of their info in the show notes. And remember what he said earlier, send an email because that's the best way for it to get tracked, actually. And also thank you to Forge for bringing us this podcast today. If you are tired of working from home and looking for a professional place to work and to get work done, Forge is your solution. You can visit workatforge.com to schedule your tour today. Thank you very much.
Thanks.